Tagovailoa underneath, intercepted Ohio State, down the sideline. Josh Proctor, touchdown Buckeyes. But a flag. They pitch it to him, train him around the corner. Can he get to the corner? Touchdown Buckeyes. At the 35, he'll drop it down. Howard, and Howard just dropped by Josh Proctor, a loss of a yard. Tagovailoa under pressure, and he's tracked down from behind by Sonny Styles. 15 yards, they go backwards. McCord, caught, Stover, touchdown Bucks. McCord, over the middle, touchdown Buckeyes. Marvin Harrison Jr., third down and 10. McCord sets up, over the middle again. This time it'll stand. Marvelous. Marvin Harrison, second down and 10. And a sack. Great pressure. Michael Hall Jr. gets home. Purdue on the board early. And he hooked it wide left. Second and 8. Out of the gun. Ford again, backpedaling, firing left sideline. Fleming fighting for it. No, it's Harrison, and he's getting it. And now G. Scott, the tight end, flipped wide to the bottom of the screen. Backpedaling, McCord lofting for the end zone. Caught. That's a touchdown. Marvin Harrison Jr. You sit it down. It's second and goal here. Devin Brown lowering his shoulder into the end zone. Another Ohio State touchdown. This one from the number 2 quarterback, Devin Brown, on the ground. Again, full personnel here for the Buckeyes as they're going to keep it on the ground. Hayden has room. 20-10. Hayden into the red zone and knocked out of bounds at the 7th, third and goal. McCord calling the pocket, throws into the end zone in traffic. That caught. That's a touchdown. That's Kate Stover. Burks goes in motion to the top of the screen. Hard under pressure, going down. JTT and Jack converge to the quarterback. The Brooklyn Boilermakers on the board here before the first half shut up. Left upright, no good. Messias has missed 2. Stop Ohio State short. Hayden stood up again, but he lunges forward and gets it. Allen, Hayden called into action. Maybe I spoke too soon. Certainly a little animated there. As McCord drops the throw. Tate running free. Tate across the 20 and thrown down at the 14. Gain of 60 to put him inside the 15. And now McCord throws another one. Kate Stover has his second touchdown today.
You know this tight end loves seeing the tight end get involved.
Brown scored earlier in this game, a rushing touchdown. He's gonna throw, and he's got his completion to Brandon Innis, the freshman Innis. Touchdown.
The wide receiver room that we just keep talking about, and a list that we just keep going further down with freshman after freshman coming in and making incredible plays. And Brandon Innis there makes a huge play on third down.
And he'll give it to him. Williams trying to get in and dives at the end. Touchdown Buckeyes. Play fake. McCord sets up. Sideline caught. Harrison in space. And Maserati Marv gets to the 4th. Allen with the handoff. Singleton stood up and goes backwards. Josh Proctor. Here's the handoff. Allen dropped in the backfield. Cody Simon.
I believe it's not just a lack of confidence maybe in the offense, but also a supreme belief in their defense.
McCord over the middle. Caught up high. Maserati. Second down and 1. McCord again to throw it. Over the middle. Caught by
Hello, Buckeyes. How are you today? And this is the Carmen, Ohio Buckeye, and I am here to talk about our previous three games and our upcoming game. First off, what is everybody impressed with? What is everybody concerned about? The Buckeyes answered the call. They have answered the call these past three games, and each game they seem to be getting better and better. And one of the most important things that everyone was concerned about was our offensive line. And our offensive line is getting better each game. They are not generationally bad like everybody was claiming. They just hadn't hit their ceiling. So, when it comes to this season, something interesting seems to be developing with this team. One of the biggest things is this team was nowhere near where they needed to be at the beginning of the year, which I think has made them work harder. And I think that's huge. I think that makes a difference. The harder you work, the further you can go. So let's just talk about each game individually, then I'll tell you my thoughts, and then I'll end this with a little bit of something extra that everybody's talking about right now. But let's go to Ohio State versus Maryland. Coming into the Maryland game, we had just got off our big win against Notre Dame. We were sky high. We had a bye week. We got time to prepare. But we had a glaring issue that has not been solved at that point, and that is our run game. Now, our run game did enough here and there against Notre Dame, but it was inconsistent. So we come up against Maryland, and they really like limited. I think it's like 3 yards per carry is what Chip Trainum had, um, and unfortunately Henderson could not play starting in the Maryland game, and he hasn't played since then. So we're just kind of waiting in the wings. When's our starting running back coming back? So Trip Trainum is playing against Maryland, and he's about 3 yards per carry. He does get a touchdown. He didn't look terrible, but he didn't look great. So we had to dig deep in the depths of you know what we are, what our identity is. We're still establishing that at this point. Kyle McCord threw for 320 yards, two touchdowns, did not have the most accurate day. He was 19 for 29. But this is, starting with Notre Dame and the Western Kentucky game, actually, before that, if you want to include that. Marvin Harrison Jr. has taken over the games. 163 yards. That seems to be kind of his stopping point, 160 something yards per game. And because he's had five of those this season, he passed David Boston. I'm sorry, his name slipped my mind for a second, but he passed David Boston, and that's the most 160-yard games in a season, or tied for the most. If he has a few more of those, he's going to break records. Kyle McCord is a weird quarterback. A lot of people are calling him Kyle McCrenzel, but you know what? Like, besides like a play here and there, he's not turning the ball over. And against Notre Dame, he threw a lot of balls that could have been intercepted, but each game that he's played, that's been better and better. So against Maryland, he did not have an interception, but he did. I think was it Maryland that he had a fumble? I think so, and I think he had a fumble, and he almost had a fumble again in our most recent game. So Ohio State versus Maryland did not jump out statistically, but we won 37-17, which actually covered the initial spread of 19.5. I know that it fluctuated 20.5, 18.5, but 19.5 was the line when the game was about to start. So they did cover there. That was the first big game that they covered. But what jumps out about this Ohio State team, the defense is absolutely amazing. If you look at Tua Tagovailoa, he only threw for 196 yards, but he threw two interceptions. Joshua Proctor with that big interception that you saw in the video. Josh Proctor is having a stellar season. And if you look back at history, we he had some problems becoming, the player that we needed on the field. And with Jim Knowles' system being safety driven, it's amazing that Josh Proctor is really coming on this year. And Lathan Ransom at the same time has really, like, the light bulb's gone on for those two. So, I mean, limiting Maryland, a pretty good offense at least, to 200, under 200 yards passing is pretty solid compared to, what we were giving up last year. So that was nice to see. And, just looking at the stats, um, third down efficiency, they were 8 for 19 on third downs. Unfortunately, we were 3 for 12, which was not one of our better showings. We had 320 yards passing and 62 yards rushing. So that made for 382 yards compared to Maryland's 302 yards. So we still outgained them. It was I mean, that's still a decent performance on defense. We gave up more rushing yards than we would have liked, but it gave us a good point to, continue to work from. But the very following week when we played Purdue, which is another basically offense-based team, uh, our defense actually was really impressive against Purdue. Purdue's not a good team, and I'll be the first to say that. But Kyle McCord was off a little bit throughout the game, but he still threw for 276 yards and 3 touchdowns. But what was nice is I think we had two running backs play in that game. Um, Chip Trainum played a little bit. Dallin Hayden played most of the game, and he had 11 carries for 76 yards. A lot of people are arguing that Hayden is actually our best running back. It's really strange because our running game is more effective than people are giving it credit for, but it's not jumping out numbers wise. And that makes this offense have a strange feel to it. Marvin Harrison Jr. only had 105 yards. I say only, but any game over 100 yards is great. But I mean, what really was impressive was our defense in this game. We did allow, it was like three running plays that we allowed that got Maccabee over 110 yards. But overall, we really put the clamps down on that. And, when you look at our third down efficiencies in this game, we were 8 for 13. That was much better. We held Purdue to 3 for 17 on third downs, and that's really good. Fourth downs, they did go for it and made it twice out of three tries. That's not as good, but we outgained them 486 yards to 257 yards. Our defense was absolutely impressive in that game. We were getting in the face of the quarterback. And if you ask me, this was the first game that I really felt like our pressure started vamping up. And that's one of the things that's sticking out to me about this Buckeye team. They seem to be peaking as the season goes slowly. And if you as a team start the season off at your best, you tend to actually get worst. And if you start the season off kind of shaky, mid-season you get better, but then you hit your peak mid-season, you might actually taper off at the end of the year as well. But this team isn't hitting their ceiling. Each game they're getting a little bit better, which gives them something to work on. And that's why I think this team has more potential than people realize. Ohio State is ranked number 3, don't get me wrong, but we're flying under the radar. Nobody really is jumping at our team saying, oh, they're so dangerous. And I think that we might sneak up on some teams this year. Okay. Now I want to go to the big game, the biggest game of the season. Now, a lot of people after this Penn State game are saying that Drew Aller looked horrible. Why don't you ever want to give credit where credit is due? Ohio State's defense killed that day. Josh Proctor, JT, Michael Hall Jr. And how about Williams, the big dude in the middle of our defensive line? That dude is a monster. Okay. And Drew Aller threw for 191 yards. Their running attack on I think it was the second drive, not the first drive. They ran 3 plays for 42 yards on that drive. Do you know how many yards rushing they ended up with? 49. We only gave up 7 yards for the rest of the game. That's absolutely impressive. and our defensive backs smothered their wide receivers, absolutely smothered them. And how about our young freshman that came in and filled in for Burke? That was impressive too. I really was happy with what I was seeing from this team. Kyle McCord ended the day with 286 yards and one touchdown. A lot of people say he did not look sharp. He went through a period where he was sharp, then he was off, then he was sharp. It's really weird. But 22 for 35 actually is not bad. It's still under 70%, so it's not where we were with CJ, but still, he's not making that big mistake. Uh, and then uh, Williams was our main running back that we had in the game. I think Chip Trainum played a little bit, but I think they took him out because they were concerned because he had a concussion the week before. So Williams had 62 yards. The weird thing about our running attack against Penn State was that there were tons of plays where we actually got 5 yards, but there were other plays where we didn't run well. And that means that our line is blocking really great on some running plays and then dropping the ball on others. But there's one thing that Ryan Day has corrected since the Maryland game, and that's, as Kirk Barton calls it, loser plays, where we're running out to where there's no blockers and one or two defensive players are running free. The running back either has to make the miss or take the hit in the backfield, and that doesn't give the running back much chance. I think if we had Henderson back there, that could actually work okay. But I mean, we need to start running with the proper blocking techniques. Now, I noticed that since the Purdue game, we really changed up our running style, and we're starting to pull guards and linemen to get the block up front so that we can get our yards. So we need to pay attention and see if that continues to improve. We're still not where we need to be, but there definitely is vast improvement because I think if we ran like we did against Penn State, and we go back to Maryland and we did that exact style, I think we would probably have 150 to 200 yards comfortably. So that shows improvement. And then, of course, Marvin Harrison Jr. had another 162-yard performance. Obviously, against Purdue, he didn't get as many yards, but we had other players step in. How about Carnell Tate and Brandon Ennis? In the Purdue game, those two really showed out, and it was great to see them both get touchdowns in that game. Those are our young wide receivers, and if they come on, if we're missing a guy like Emeka Egbuka, our offense might not skip a beat. Now, I felt like our offense did skip a beat against Penn State. First off, 20-12 sounds close, but technically we dominated them. That score is not as doesn't jump out to you as much as what it should. And that's okay because we still won, we're still learning, we're still a young team. But when I look back at these last 3 games, you can see the growth happening each week, and that means we haven't hit our ceiling yet. Kyle McCord is a far distance from his ceiling. He's still growing, and sometimes he looks sharp like CJ did. Other times he looks off. If you go back to that clip that I was showing with Purdue, where he threw it to Marvin Harrison Jr. and he caught it, but it was underthrown. If he would have thrown it over his shoulder, Marvin Harrison Jr. would be running, probably still at this time, 2 weeks later. Okay, I exaggerate. But there's just some things that Kyle McCord can still work on. Sometimes he does have a tendency to overthrow, but overall, I think Kyle McCord can get the job done. And I don't, a lot of people get angry at him, but just be patient because he is growing each week. So, my final thoughts as we prepare for Wisconsin. Wisconsin is not the Wisconsin that we know. This isn't your dad's Wisconsin. Okay. First off, Mordecai is injured. He's their starting quarterback. So Locke is the name of their quarterback. Um, Now they do have an excellent running back. His name's Allen. They also have a 1-2 punch that they use. So they do still have a good running game, but their offensive line is not quite what it used to be. And honestly, like Wisconsin was down 21-7 at the end of the third quarter. It at that point it's like Wisconsin style ball. It's like there's just you're thinking there's no way they can come back. So I got to give their backup quarterback some credit. Locke brought them back, and they ended up winning 25-21. And I'm glad that they won, partially because our strength of schedule, because obviously we have to play them, we have to beat them, and we need their strength of schedule to be part of our strength of schedule. But that's not really an issue if we don't lose. But, going into Camp Randall Stadium used to strike fear in the hearts of Buckeyes. I can't tell you how many times we used to watch them beat Jim Tressel or beat John Cooper or beat Earl Bruce. But since Urban Meyer took over, has not beat us. Uh, they didn't even beat us the Luke Fickle year. We actually beat Wisconsin that year. It was a huge upset. Wisconsin was way better than us. We had no business beating them, but we did. So, what do we need to do against Wisconsin? Well, first off, the new strategy that we're using, pulling our guards and running the ball, we need to fine tune that against Wisconsin. Their defense is pretty solid. It's not old Wisconsin, but it's still solid. So we need to test our metal and see if we can do this. Hopefully Henderson can start. We don't know. So if it's Chip Trainum or if it's Williams, that's fine, but we need to fine tune this. Um, the other thing that I would like to see Kyle McCord stay consistent. Like he looked really sharp on that first drive against Penn State, and then after that first drive, he was just missing everything out of nowhere. And then Ryan Day said, "You know what? I need to give my quarterback confidence." Now, this is why Ryan Day is still an excellent coach. Do I think he's as good as Urban Meyer? No, but he could get there. He's actually a young coach. He's much younger than Meyer. He's one of the younger coaches in college football. So remember that he's still growing. But what did he do? He took some of Sarkeesian's plays and started moving Marvin Harrison Jr. around. And like he would move before the snap and kind of move in a circle. Now, if you want to know why I say that's Steve Sarkeesian's game plan, that's exactly what he did to us with Devonta Smith. So Ryan Day took some of those plays. He's moving Marvin Harrison around, and it worked. And so if Ryan Day keeps using his imagination like that, I think that will help get Kyle McCord more sharp because once he gains confidence, his throwing is way better. I also want to mention even though he had some periods where he's off, he threw some dimes. Like there was one play, and I think it was to Tate. He threw it, and the defender was right on him, and he zipped it right in there. And the wide receiver caught it, got immediately tackled, got us a first down. He zipped that. There were also some amazing throws downfield to Marvin Harrison Jr. So even though I said Kyle McCord has a tendency to underthrow, it's not a problem of arm strength. It's just a matter of accuracy. So he needs to keep working on that. So, obviously we need to work on a running game and we need to see more consistency uh, out of McCord. But something else that I'm not worried about is our defense. Like I said, Penn State had 3 plays on I think it was the second drive for 42 yards. We only gave up 7 yards the rest of the game. If we take away Wisconsin's running game, we'll put a lot of pressure on this backup quarterback, and that's exactly what you want to do because all it takes is a couple of interceptions to Josh Proctor or Burke if he plays, or or any of our players, and all of a sudden, we're up a couple of scores and there's no looking back. And that's what we need to do because we put that pressure on them, and and we get a comfortable lead and we can coast because Wisconsin is right now a very important game for Ohio State. We're at that cusp. We're almost getting to the point where I would call us a dominant team, but we're missing a few pieces here and there. And if it starts to click this week, the next 3 weeks will be practice basically. So, as far as a Buckeye fan goes, obviously this year comes down to the final game. To be honest, we could even drop this game against Wisconsin and still be okay, but we don't want that to happen, do we? So let's hope that doesn't happen. And I don't think it will. I think our defense is absolutely astoundingly great, and it may be the best defense in the country. Sure, it does things a little differently with its cage rush. I get it. But that's okay because the cage rush has prevented the quarterbacks from escaping. We kind of set State up on a couple of plays where we did our cage rush technique, and he ran up the middle, got tackled, because we would much rather Drew Aller run than try to beat us with his arm. So we kind of set him up. But other quarterbacks that can run, what we've done is we've worked to contain them so they can't escape. And that to Jim Knowles, that's more important than sacking the quarterbacks. But when we get a sack, that makes it extra special. So my thoughts on this game is defense travels. As long as our defense continues playing the way it is, we have a chance in every game we play. They're conditioned well. They're not tired at the end of the game. Our backups are just as good as our starters, or at least half a step behind them, and that's it. How about Jackson when he comes in? You know, he's doing a great job this year, and I'm just really impressed with this team. They have a chance to become great. And don't give up on Kyle McCord yet. I know people are upset at him and frustrated with him, but look, the dude drove us down the field to beat Notre Dame when his back was against the wall. Had he lost that, we'd be looking at him completely different. But he found a way. So let's see how Kyle McCord grows because the sky's the limit. I'm very impressed with this team. I think our offensive line is way better than advertised and has gotten an unfair amount of criticism, considering we have a true freshman at center. And when you start a true freshman at center, you're asking a lot because usually you want a junior in there at center. So he's had to learn on the job. So keep that in mind. Guys, our Buckeyes have a chance at the whole thing this year, the whole 9 yards. But at the very least, we have a chance to win the Big Ten championship. I know Michigan's a huge game. We'll worry about that when we get there. But look, with all the scandal going on, Michigan is in a world of hurt right now. Sure, they look good on the field, but think about this. If these accusations are correct, we're going to go into that game and they're not going to know our play calls like they did the previous years. So that could be a huge difference. I mean, think about it. We were dominating this team all of a sudden with the same types of recruits, the same types of players. All of a sudden, they're whooping us on the field. And it didn't make sense. It didn't make sense to me. I know it didn't make sense to any other Buckeyes. So let's see what happens. But the Buckeyes have a chance to be historic. The Buckeyes have a chance to win this thing. And regardless what people say about how Michigan being way better than us, I do know one thing. Defense wins games. They have a defense, we have a defense. We have a chance as long as we have that defense. I think Kyle McCord has better tools. You may say that JJ is the better quarterback, but we have better tools. Look at our wide receivers. Look at Cade Stover. Look at our defense. We have a chance, guys. So let's let this team grow. And we could get there. So I'm looking forward to this game this week. Camp Randall is a tough place to play. Obviously, we cannot come into this game sloppy because we just beat Penn State and we're just like we can beat anybody. We need to go in there and take them seriously. But if we get past this game, it's basically practice for 3 weeks before Michigan. So that's nice. We actually get three easier games heading into the Michigan game. Hopefully, that gives us a chance to get healthy. All right, guys, I appreciate you tuning in. I will make a video talking a little bit more about the Michigan scandal. It's huge. A lot of Michigan fans are trying to blow it off, but it's really, really bad. And I mean, it's really, really bad. And I do think that it's going to end with Jim Harbaugh getting fired and a lot of games being taken out of their record books. So I'm not necessarily wishing that on our rivals. I'm also kind of laughing about it at the same time, though. Face it, Buckeyes, we can't help it. They're our rivals. We don't like them. We don't like them. So, you know. But anyways, tune in. I'll make another video. I'll try to be more consistent. I just want to say one last thing. Go Buckeyes!